Democracy? Well, let's have a look at it. It costs $2 billion to become president. They're 25% of the total prisoners in the world. They spend over $800 billion a year on arms, which is more than most of the world put together. They've been at war for 250 years since their state was formed 275 years ago. But they can't afford universal health care. They can't afford the 1.7 trillion debt forgiveness for students. They can't afford a program for the 17 million children that go to bed hungry. Is this a functioning democracy? What's your idea of a democracy?
And the naive faith of the proletarian requires necessary illusion and emotionally potent oversimplifications, which have to be provided by myth-makers to keep the ordinary person on the right course.
It's delivered by diplomacy, by dialogue. You can wish away your continent's history, but we share a continent with Russia. We will sit down with Russia. There will be a negotiated peace, and this organisation should be promoting it earlier rather than delaying it and making sure that more Ukrainians die. Your feigning of sympathy rings hollow. It makes me sick, to be honest with you.
Your humble show here, your humble little news show that we hope brings you a lot of value. And we try to bring you a daily newsletter every morning that you can get for free. All you need to do is sign up by going to redacted.inc. It's totally free. You won't spend a penny on it. You just sign up with your email. You'll receive a welcome email. You have to verify that, though, with your email provider. Otherwise, they'll think you're spam. Might go to your spam folder, so just drag it over, click verify, and then tomorrow morning at about 6:30, 7 a.m. Eastern time, you'll receive the newsletter. We cover about 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day. A lot of the stuff that the mainstream media covers over or doesn't want you to see. Natalie does a lot of great writing on this newsletter, and we cover the markets, what's going on with gold and silver, and you can read it in about 5-10 minutes over your cup of coffee, and it kind of kickstarts your day. Again, totally free. But it's a great way for us to stay connected with you because censorship is rife on these big tech platforms, on YouTube specifically. We've been banned about 4 times now on this platform. And the only way we're able to connect with you is through email because they won't let us post any community posts. They won't let us do anything. So you get a great newsletter. Plus, if anything happens to us, we'll be able to communicate with you. So again, redacted.inc is the place to go. Yeah.
I was thoroughly impressed with the dancing skier this morning. I watched that GIF over and over. Oh, yeah? That was very impressive.
So, yeah, I added that in because, so Natalie had the story in the newsletter this morning about Gwyneth Paltrow, who was on some sort of a skiing trip, and she's being sued because, she hit somebody in the head with a ski?
Well,
and
he
kept on going?
That she was skiing recklessly and ran into him. She says he ran into her. So they are countersuing one another for injury and distress. I missed the GIF though. What was it?
I chose a funny skier GIF who was doing I don't know, spinning pirouettes.
Yeah. I was just thinking Go ahead.
Did Natalie just admit she didn't read the newsletter this morning?
I know. What the hell?
Didn't see the image.
The newsletter that you wrote? Anyway.
I wrote it, but sometimes I miss the images when it comes through. I just kind of scan through and make sure, did I get everything right? Sometimes I see typos because we don't have editors. It's just us together, and sometimes we miss some things. And I get your emails when you catch them. So yeah, anyway. That story made me feel like there's no more American story out there. Like famous actress, Park City, Utah, being sued over skiing. I've skied a couple times in Europe, and I many times wanted to sue fellow skiers for skiing recklessly around my baby. But that's not what you do in other countries. You don't litigate.
No. So that's some of the fun you get in the newsletter. Anyway, redacted.inc. All right, let's get to your top story today. And I have a question for you. I want to kick this off with a question. Is the United States doing anything it can right now to torpedo peace talks between Russia and Ukraine? I'll just answer it for you. The answer is yes. Just look what happened over the past 48 hours. Chinese President Xi Jinping in Moscow in talks with Vladimir Putin. They spoke for about 4 hours yesterday. Talks continue today. And one of the things they're laying out is a 12-point plan. Chinese 12-point plan for peace in Ukraine. And Putin is on board with this plan. We already know this. They're already open to it. They've publicly said this. So they're sort of working on the peace agreement with Ukraine. And then what's the U.S. and NATO response to this? This is the response. NATO considering deployment of up to 300,000 troops on the border with Russia. NATO announces they're putting 300,000 troops on high alert and, according to Politico, ready to send them to eastern Ukraine with Russia. I don't know. Did you guys sign up for this? Here's the quote from Politico. Politico writes that NATO military leaders are to submit updated regional defense plans. Alliance officials are putting forward the idea that its borders with Russia should be guarded by up to 300,000 troops, the news outlet reports. Not just like on alert. No, you're going there. You will guard this territory. It's not just something Secretary of State making this announcement about China's peace initiative. Watch.
And a ceasefire now, without a durable solution, would allow President Putin to rest and refit his troops and then restart the war at a time more advantageous to Russia. The world should not be fooled by any tactical move by Russia, supported by China or any other country, to freeze the war on its own terms. Such a move would violate the UN Charter and defy the will of 141 countries who have condemned Russia's war in the United Nations General Assembly.
Yeah. Now, wouldn't that, they can rest up and be stronger argument also cut both ways? Because Ukraine is not winning. And so if there were any ceasefire, it could also, by that logic, work to the advantage of the West to make the weapons they no longer have, to rest the troops, to resupply the ground force. Right. So, someone should call them out on the fact that, yes, that's bullshit, what he's saying. It's total bullshit. And it's almost the exact same sentence that John Kirby said over the weekend on Face the Nation.
Oh, the exact same phrasing. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
So, yes, we call out that it's bullshit. But also, if we're just going to be a member of the press and follow the logic for an exercise in futility, you should say, wouldn't Ukraine also get to rest? Wouldn't people get to stop dying for a little bit? Wouldn't that be advantageous?
Right. So don't fall for it, is what he's saying. Don't fall for this propaganda.
They can't rest because they're going to get stronger. But by that logic, the other team gets stronger too. I mean, I know how the World Series works.
What's up? Right. Exactly. You get a day off. Oh, now there's a chance that you could actually get your pitcher, the good starting pitcher, back again.
Right.
Because you get that extra day off thanks to rain. Wow, this changes everything in the World Series.
So only one side rests in a ceasefire and the other side, gets to pretend they're in that gung-ho movie?
Well, and it's ridiculous because what he's saying is we would go back. The idea is we want to go back to pre-war lines, right? Eastern Ukraine, Donbass goes back to being Ukrainian, and you can continue to kill all the people in the Donbass with continued shelling and carry out your genocide, which you've been doing for 9 years. Continue that, right? That's the goal of the United States, is to move those lines back again. They had a chance to do that. They had a chance to do that back when we were having peace talks and Turkey was laying out that plan. At that point, those territorial lines were still intact. But then the United States, of course, and Britain stepped in and torpedoed that whole peace talk. So here's their second chance at torpedoing peace talks. That's exactly what they're doing. And now they've lost more territory. So if they continue this, the next stage is going to be the capture of Kiev, right? The capital of Ukraine. And then it's game over. And then there's no territory left at all to be talking about.
Which the Western media has told you the war has been in Kiev all along, and it hasn't been. They pretended that it was in the center of the country. And then the New York Times ran pieces saying, look, they're kind of back last summer. Cafes are back open. The ground force has not come there. The attack has not come there yet.
The only time it comes there is when President Biden... Yeah, exactly. You were on the same wavelength. The only time that the war is there is when President Biden showed up a few weeks ago. Suddenly there were air raid sirens.
When Angelina Jolie was there, they had her running through as well, through the city, out of a cafe and that
Sean
kind
Penn,
of thing.
Yeah, all that stuff. So just for some context here, the United States, so we understand what we're talking about here, the U.S. pushed for the death and destruction of Ukraine, using Ukraine as a proxy the entire time. The goal is the total collapse of Ukraine so that NATO will use the land as a proxy for Russian containment.
Which would basically make Ukraine an aircraft carrier for its war with the East.
That's all they want. Case closed. The U.S. doesn't give a shit about the Ukrainian people. If it did, then it wouldn't have provoked a war with Russia. And more context on that, the Pentagon runs 46 biolabs in Ukraine. George Soros, Vanguard, BlackRock now own most of the land in Ukraine. The United States used Ukraine to test out and roll out the first digital ID system that is now trackable and controlled by the government. Microsoft now runs all of Ukraine's government on its servers. The U.S. owns Ukraine. from soup to nuts. And there are some nuts that we own now in that country. Total destruction of Ukraine has been the plan. And using Ukrainians was always the plan in order for us to take full control of this country. Remember Congressman Adam Schiff explaining this plan. Watch.
The United States aids Ukraine and her people so that we can fight Russia over there and we don't have to fight Russia here.
Exactly. So we've known all along we are fighting Russia. That's the plan. We'll use Ukraine as a proxy so that we fight Russia in that way. And as you mentioned, John Kirby saying the exact same thing this weekend. So as we're talking about peace, and John Kirby comes out and says that, you know, we can't have this ceasefire. It's unacceptable. Any example of this is unacceptable. And let's listen to John Kirby. This is what he said in case you missed it. Listen.
That if coming out of this meeting, there's some sort of call for a ceasefire, well, that's just going to be unacceptable, because all that's going to do, Mike, is ratify Russia's conquest to date. All that's going to do is give Mr. Putin more time to refit, retrain, reman, and try to plan for renewed offensives at a time of his choosing. We hope, and we've said this before, that President Xi will call and talk to President Zelensky, because we believe the Chinese need to get the Ukrainian perspective here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that is the plan for Xi Jinping to meet with Ukraine after this summit.
Right.
And what then is the talking point, given that Ukraine is behaving like the battered spouse of the United States? You know, just won't leave them even though they're the ones taking the hits.
Right.
How can China talk them into reason?
Well, accordingly, I mean, we the same thing that happened last time, right, is that the United States and Britain sent convoys to Kiev when they were having peace talks with Russia last time.
Yes, we know this.
Right. So they're doing the exact same thing again. So they're like prepping them, like, don't under any circumstances take whatever China gives you. Like, we got this.
Right.
We've got this. We're going to send 300,000 troops. We're going to send you more money. We've got this. We control you, by the way. All of that money that you keep getting from us will dry up. It will go away if you move any further with peace talks with Russia. That's going to end. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Right. So my question is, what kind of carrot does China have to get them to stop behaving in this way?
About their money, because of a collapse. So it's your fault. It's Twitter's fault. It's people talking about their own money. It's your fault. Watch.
Who is responsible for this disaster?
Schauen Sie.
Well, look, hindsight is wonderful, and to point a finger, it's a fact that since 2021, with JADOS, we never left the headlines. We were overtaken by legacy situations, by risks that materialized last year. We were affected by a market model that does no longer work in this market environment, and many clients have been very loyal for a very long time. And last autumn, we had this social media storm, and this had huge repercussions. More in the retail sector than in the wholesale sector, and too much becomes too much. And that's when we reach this point. It's accumulation of various facts that contributed to one another and then materialized at some point.
So it's social media. It's people talking on Twitter and who are concerned about their money and then went and wanted to take money out of the bank. So it's your fault. It's your fault that, and Twitter's fault, basically, that your entire industry is built on a lie. This whole banking industry is built on a lie.
A bank should never say too much is too much. Like, every single unit of currency should be accounted for. There should not be too much that you want of your currency inside the bank.
No, it's your fault.
That's a terrifying thing to say.
It's your fault that you put $100 in the bank and you want to get your $100 out. That's your fault.
That's too much is too much.
Because the real secret, of course, is that they don't have any of your money, right?
So
That's
then
the
how
truth.
much is too much for you to want of your own money? 50%?
You're not even supposed to talk about how much you want. Like not even 10%, because they don't have that either. So you're not allowed to talk about it. And if you're concerned about it on social media, then you're causing other people to also be concerned about it, about their own money in their own bank, and it's your fault.
Too much is too much, they say.
It's
about
not
your own
Technically,
money.
with fractional banking, your dollar is negative $10. I mean, at least it should be, right? Like they can loan out 10 times what you give them.
Yeah, here's a tweet that I think he nails it. Listen to this. Operation Libertas says, translation: we no longer have control of the narrative through legacy media corporate press, and people are starting to learn the truth about our corrupt global fractional reserve system. What David's talking about, of course, is fractional reserve banking, which is you put $100 into a bank, they only have to keep 10% of it. 10% is historically what they had to keep. They could lend out the other 90 in the form of mortgages and loans and everything else. And they only had to keep 10% on file, right? Now, during COVID 2020, the law was changed to 0. They don't have to keep 10%. They have to keep 0 of your money. You bring $100 to them, and they don't even have to keep 10% of it on file. So what happens when all these people suddenly want their money back? Well, guess what? They don't have it because they do risky investments, right? And we know this from the FDIC meeting with the leaked video where the FDIC admits that the banking industry is a joke built on a house of lies. They also admit during that meeting that it's best we don't tell the masses of people about this because if they find out, they may actually want their money back. So only tell the rich people, only tell the billionaires, or they'll probably have a legal team that's sophisticated enough to figure it out. But please don't tell anybody about it. Don't use social media to let the cat out of the bag. And today we're seeing this fallout spreading to small regional banks and credit unions. Many of you have actually been emailing us asking about credit unions. People are saying, well, I bank at a credit union. Am I okay? Well, we at Redacted have been hearing from a number of different people who work at credit unions that they are being laid off. There's layoffs happening across the board at a number of different credit unions. One particular credit union employee wrote to us saying that she discovered the credit union she worked for was $2 million in the red. And then when she confronted her boss about it, what are we going to do about this? He said, basically, she's like, how are we going to correct this? He said, we're going to have to lay people off. And that's exactly what happened. She lost her job. So she was a person that lost her job. And how many more people are being laid off because they can't balance their books? So this is happening at small regional banks and credit unions across the country with the rise of interest rates. And these banks have been crushed because they rely so heavily on local mortgages, right? So a lot of these small banks rely on these mortgages. Here's the Wall Street Journal this morning with this piece. SVB collapse shows smaller banks can pose risks in numbers. And what they point out in this piece is that for 15 years, regulators and legislators have assumed that the biggest risks to the financial system came from a handful of too big to fail banks. Little did they think that all those little banks with a few billion here and a few billion there would add up to a lot of billions. So when those start to fall, they've been focused on the wrong fish, right? They've been looking at the big guys when in fact, wait a minute, if all of the little guys fall, all of those little dominoes fall, that's a lot of money. And that's a lot of communities that will be screwed and small businesses that have small business loans, all sorts of things through these small community banks.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what ends up happening is, and what ends up happening is these little banks are making actual investments into the community. They're the ones loaning your houses. They're the ones, credit unions are doing loans for cars and stuff like that at better interest rates. Then when this happens, and these big banks that have all the money, they swoop in and buy these little banks. And then all of a sudden now you're in a fractional banking system because they just like opened up the market for them to, like, there was a Washington Mutual Bank and all these little banks that I really enjoyed being part of that just got sucked up in the bailout and became part of Chase and Bank of America. So they just keep getting bigger and they keep getting rid of these little banks. Yeah. I feel like it's by design.
Well, a lot of times when you bank with a small bank, they sell your loan anyway, and in order to make money on it, and they sell it into a larger banking system, which is allowed. But there's a compendium of smaller banks that have been pushing back against increasing regulation and increasing reporting requirements that the Biden administration continues to want to push back and say, this is going to put us out of business. The big banks can do it, but we can't. So there does seem to be an appetite from the Biden administration to unduly burden small community banks and, by extension, then small business.
Yeah. As Peter Schiff says, this is a banking crisis, however you want to slice it. The media is reluctant to call what's happening with banks a financial crisis, as they do not want to invite comparisons to 2008. But the 2008 financial crisis was also a banking crisis. Not only is the current crisis a sequel to 2008, but like all sequels, it will be much worse. Except for The Godfather. Godfather 2 is.
And apparently John Wick.
John
Wick 4 is the highest rated now in the franchise. So
not all sequels.
Suck.
Doesn't it seem more logical then that you would let the big banks fail and prop up the little ones if they're the majority of the problem here?
No, because as Carol Roth points out in her great book, The War on Small Business, because small businesses are wily and you cannot control them. The government wants to make broad strokes, as you've seen, the way they control the conversation, not through sort of next door or what have you. They control the conversation through Twitter.
And the Fed even admitted this. Remember, guys, back a few years ago when we were getting the stimulus plans, and of course the Federal Reserve had that small banking facility that they put out there, the small business facility. They created some, and they stay the same. Then, of course, inflation remains strong. They continue to print money. In other words, the Fed is painted into a corner that they can't get out of. They waited too long to raise rates. They waited too long to pull back on printing money. It was always going to be painful. But now they made it that much worse by waiting to do anything about it. So I'll ask you guys the question. Do you think they're going to protect your 401k tomorrow? Do you think that or your mortgage, or do you think that they're going to protect the big banks tomorrow? Like, that's the big question. Let me know in the comments below. Here in the United States. Do you think they're going to protect you?
They're protecting their pensions. They're protecting all that.
Yeah,
but they won't protect us in that way. I think the Monopoly board sums up our banking system perfectly. Here it is. This is a monopoly rule. If you open up the Monopoly board and you ask the question, well, what if the bank runs out of money? Some players think the bank is bankrupt if it runs out of money. The bank never goes bankrupt. To continue playing, use slips of paper to keep track of each player's banking transactions until the bank has had enough paper money to operate again. The banker may also issue, quote, new money on slips of ordinary paper.
Okay.
That's the Monopoly board, which sums up our entire banking industry in the United States perfectly well.
I mean, I just want to treat life like a game like that from now on. Be like,
Oh, I got some paper.
What is what it is.
Oh, we don't have any money?
Well, I'm just let me just start buying groceries that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to declare that I never run out of money. And so anytime I want to buy something, I'm just going to be like, actually, here, just some paper. It's just, you hang on to this, and when I have money, I'll give it to you.
It's an IOU.
This is good.
It's like in Dumb and Dumber when they have all the IOUs. It's like it's basically just the same thing. It's as good as the money.
Oh yeah.
Here's just a box of IOUs. What is this?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm good for that. We've got more news to get to here on your Taco Tuesday. We're going to look at the filet of Fauci, and I don't know. Should we hold the fluoride story? Maybe we're kind of long today. Maybe we'll hold that, or do you want to get to it?
I don't care. Whatever you want.
Okay.
We can keep it for tomorrow. Sure.
Okay. We'll get to that because I think we're running out of time and we're going long with all of the big news. So we'll hold that story for tomorrow. But first, why don't we tell you about our friends over at Indeed? The thing about running your own business is every single hire counts. No hiring partner understands that like Indeed. Indeed is a hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed's Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. You hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows that over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed makes it so easy. In fact, when we were using them, it's what you do is you post a job and then you're getting all of these matches. You don't have to dig through all of these resumes and waste tons of time. It really, it's 3 times more likely you're going to find one of these matches. They're going to apply for your job than candidates who only see it in the search bar. So it's really great. Their instant match is fantastic. Indeed knows when you're growing your business, and you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. So in the minute we've been talking to you, 16 hires have been made. That's right, 16 hires according to Indeed data worldwide. So Indeed knows that you need to be cost effective when you're running your own business. Visit Indeed.com/redacted to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/redacted. Indeed.com/redacted. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application. Pricing not available for everyone. If you need to hire, you need Indeed.
All right. Well, I didn't mean I don't care about doing the story. So we will tell you about the story about a new report out about the contraindications of fluoride in public water. I do very much care. Okay. But we will hold it because we don't want to keep you for too long. And also, I have to go to the little girl's room.
Okay. But first, let's tell you about this. This incredible footage going viral on social media. And, you know, obviously we know now the lengths that the pharmaceutical companies were working with the federal government. Do you want to address some of this? I mean, the cooperation on the advertisement, the pushing of social media narratives. We saw it in the Twitter files, right? So there was a lot of money being spent cooperatively to push a narrative to go out and get vaccines, like these vaccine drives, right?
Well, we know that social media companies gave the government millions of dollars of free advertising in order to promote the vaccine. We know that the government was working actively with those social media companies at the same time to suppress any vaccine hesitancy, or as we covered yesterday, just simple questions about the vaccine. And we also now know that some of the patents were owned by government agencies, and that those government agencies now will get kickbacks from the sale of the vaccine. So it's clear that promoting the vaccine was very heavily connected to profit.
Absolutely. And so we saw, of course, big drives to go out and vaccine push, you know, signs everywhere and community buses and like, you know, things, centers set up all over the place where you can go and get a vaccine. Well, there's some incredible footage of Dr. Fauci going viral on social media because it's part of a PBS documentary on Fauci. It's like a propaganda piece put out by the deep state. PBS, of course, as we've highlighted here on the show, is literally an extension of the federal government. It's funded by taxpayers in large part, but it is a propaganda arm, just like the Associated Press is of the federal government, as our piece with Dan Cohen points out. So this incredible footage of Fauci explaining, along with Mayor Muriel Bowser of Washington, D.C., they're going door to door, trying to get people to get the COVID vaccine. Like, we're going to come to your door, and we're literally just going to give you the vaccine. How are you doing with the vaccine? We got them right here. You ready for one? I've got a whole stash of them right here. We'll give them to you right now. In this video clip from this PBS documentary, which is going to air tonight, Biden's COVID advisors basically are arguing with DC residents about these vaccines, and weren't expecting, I don't think, some of these people in these neighborhoods to push back and saying, well, who followed the science here? Like, what I'm hearing, why are you having to sell me on this thing? If this is so good, then why are you out here having to push this on me? Watch this unbelievable moment now with Dr. Fauci being...
Conversation that happened online.
Oh, yeah. I remember covering that part of it. And I love, he says, something else is going on here. The fact that you're having to pay people to go, we're going to give you money. We're going to give you money, a check in this community if you get this vaccine. Something else is going on here. She's like, yeah, something else is going on here. But so she admits something else is going on here. You know, maybe not in the way that she intended. Another piece of video that's come out of this is amazing. I added some subtitles here because it's a little quiet. So forgive me, but it's Dr. Fauci again talking about the concern basically of Republican states, red states. You might as well just say it. That don't want to get vaccinated. And we've got to really figure out a way to push them on this. We need to break that. Watch this.
What are we going to do about those other states?
Oh, my God. They're going to keep the outbreaks smoldering in the country. It's so crazy. I mean, they're not doing it because they say they don't want to do it. They're Republicans. They don't like to be told what to do. Right. And we got to break that, unpack that.
How you guys doing with vaccine?
Unbelievable. Just disgusting. It really, yeah. And I think it's interesting because this happened. I don't know how old this video actually is. I think it's about 2 years old now at this point, or a year and a half, 2 years old. That the fact that he had that awareness, right, to be able to stand up there and say that to her and to Dr. Fauci on your front doorstep.
But it almost doesn't matter because Pfizer has admitted that they never had information that showed that the vaccine prevents contraction, that the vaccine prevents the spread, which means that he never had data to say that. Right. So if he's saying they're going to keep the pandemic smoldering, he's indicating it's because they won't be able to stop the spread because they're refusing the vaccine. He never had any data to say that. We know this now.
I'm sorry, I was conflating the two sound. I meant the other guy on the doorsteps shouting them down. He didn't have that. He 2 years ago had.
No, I'm talking about Fauci. He did not have the data to suggest that refusing vaccination would keep the pandemic smoldering.
Right. Yeah.
He never had that data. And so.
And by the way, which states ended up doing the best?
Right.
Think about it. Right. And I also love the backdrop of these guys there that are walking with them, like the security people and all that sort of walking with them, and the poll workers or whatever. The one guy has on 2 masks, and Fauci has no mask on. Like, where's the science in that then? Right? Because you were telling us at the beginning, no masks, and then you're telling us, yeah, absolutely mask. Anytime you're out in a group of people, you want to wear masks. So why is he okay to not be wearing masks?
Well, because, I can sort of pinpoint this timing of this is mid-2021. This is my estimation. But around that time, the narrative was you don't have to wear a mask if you've been vaccinated. Even Disney had that policy. Right. Come on into the park and only unvaccinated people should wear masks. We now know there was no science around that, around masking as it relates to vaccination. But I think that what they're trying to point at this time, and we are going to forget that these were the talking points and what we've been through. But at the time, this was the propaganda that I can only be unmasked because I'm vaccinated and you can't because you are not.
I mean, I hope we don't forget this stuff. I mean, this is so important that we don't ever repeat this stuff again, is for us to catalog it and point this stuff out and remind people of it. It's like, frankly, it's like what happened in World War II. So, you never stop talking about what happened at Auschwitz because, the moment you stop talking about it, you start sweeping it under the rug, then you get deniers that it ever happened, right? Yeah. And that's awful. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was just going to say, and you know damn well that they did a lot of research, then went to houses that they figured were all going to be, Democrat and, very willing
it's Washington, D.C. Everyone's a Democrat, right?
Well,
they were not expecting that guy to walk out of that house.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, just today, the Epoch Times did a piece about how the CDC bought phone data to monitor Americans' compliance with lockdowns. We have reported on that as it related to the election, how certain politicians used this. But they knew all along, based on phone records of who was complying with lockdown, who was vaccinated, and they knew who to target based on geolocation of your technology.
Unbelievable. Well, it's no secret. If you're tuned in, then you know experts are predicting a recession heading our way. Layoffs are already happening. Government is ready to print more money, further devaluing the U.S. dollar. Last year was terrible for most investors. 2023 could be even worse. That is, unless you were smart and you invested in gold, then you were protected from loss, while other investments fell. And if the experts are right and we get hit with a recession, 2023 is going to look even better for gold. We just saw gold crest $2,000 for the first time, a new record for gold and silver. If you're interested right now in investing in gold, the folks at Lear Capital will help you get started purchasing precious metals or converting part of your IRA or your 401k into gold and into a silver IRA. You can call Lear Capital today at 1-800-613-3557 or go to learredacted.com. And right now, if you actually buy 1 ounce of gold, Lear Capital is giving away a free ounce of silver. That's incredible. Literally free silver that can help you, that you can keep or you can sell immediately. You can do whatever you want with it. There are a lot of gold companies to choose from, and Lear Capital has over 25 years of experience, thousands of 5-star reviews, and a risk-free guarantee that gives you 24 hours to review your purchase before committing to it. Lear Capital is a top choice when buying gold and silver, so you can call them 1-800-613 3557 or go to learredacted.com and get your free ounce of silver when you buy 1 ounce of gold. That's learredacted.com. So thanks so much, guys, for joining us. We really appreciate it. We should mention that the storefront, we have a few more days to get our Silence Equals Complicity t-shirt, which is our special anti-war t-shirt through the end of the month. This is a limited run of the shirt. Silence Equals Complicity. It's been a hot seller, so definitely grab it if you want to. That's at redactedstore.com. Head on over there and support independent journalism. We don't make very much money on these at all, the printing costs. So it does help us a little bit, but we don't. It's not like we're cleaning up on any of this stuff. But we really try to keep our prices right near cost. So we just make a little bit to support the channel. You can support independent you can support independent journalism by grabbing some Redacted merch. Again, redactedstore.com is the place to go for that.
All right. Well, we will see you back here tomorrow with that fluoride story, I promise. And once again, we will be in this shifted time for those of you who did not change times 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. We should be all synced up after Sunday. So thank you for finding us whenever you can. Be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, tell your friends. It's redacted.inc if you want to find out more. And thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone.
Bye now.
Are you worried about